Hola community, welcome to Blender Today Live, this gathering where we see what's new in Blender, in the community, in Blender, the current release, the working release, the active releases. What is an active release? Well, it's a release that is getting updates, right? So right now, at this moment, we have 4 active releases. Blender 4.2 is still active. It came out last year, and no, 2 years ago, still active. Then we have 4.5, also active, which is actually, these two are getting a new update at the end in 2 weeks, on the 28th of October. So in 2 weeks, there will be a new update to these LTS releases. So that's 2. Then we have 5.0, which is now in beta, and you should try it and test it and report issues. But you also have for 5.1 alpha, which there are a few new things, something that didn't make it into 5.0. It's not like super groundbreaking because that all really got like smooshed into 5.0. I hope you are gonna like it. Today we are gonna go through, well, not that many. I mean, there's around 500 and something commits, of which I'll try to go through maybe 80. Oh, 80 again. Last week was also 80. Okay. And actually, last week I skipped 2 changes related to image painting, which I'm going to cover today. So, and we never see these kind of changes in image painting. So good to see. All right. Sorry for my voice. I'm still recovering from some. Let's see how we call. Let's see how I do in these 2 hours or so, because it's going to be a long one. But make some tea, make some mate, because let's see what's new in Blender 5.0 beta. That's insane. We are already in beta. So yes, a new splash screen. By the way, yes, there's a new splash. You can, it's the thumbnail of this video at this moment, and you will see it if you go to blender.org. We replace the homepage with this amazing splash. This is by the artist Juan Hernandez, which also goes by the name Don Juan. Not Don Juan, but Don Juan 3D. You also may have seen some of his insane work with Blender, and he also develops at Framestore. It works at Framestore, and also not just that, but he presented Framestore. Let's see, if you do like Blender conference Juan Framestore, somebody looked for it again. There you will see this presentation, which it's just insane that these people are using Blender for this thing. It's like you look at your favorite characters and they were made with Blender. Sometimes rendered with Blender, sometimes previs. So it's amazing. Congrats, Juan, for being the splash of such an amazing release, which is going to be Blender 5. And also thank you for providing the blend file. Will be available as always, as usual, not as always. There was one release that didn't get the file because we couldn't get the file, but this time we'll try. And let's see what's new in Blender 5. So let's start as always. We go in order. We have around 500 commits, and of which we start by order. So we API documentation, not much. Animation. I mean, it's still important, right? Every change is important. So thank you, Nick. But let's go to some of the ones that I think are more relevant for this show. So let's start with A for animation. Animation. All right, let's start with some removal. So 5.0 it's a big moment where developers take the chance, the opportunity to remove things, to clean up Blender so it stays light and fast, right? So okay, this changed. Remove legacy pose library conversion before Blender 3.0. So we always talk about this new animation system, right? Like the new animation 2025. It's been implemented since Blender 3.0, and it's been worked on since then. So their pose libraries used before that in 293, where they needed like a conversion operator. This has been removed from Blender 5, but you always have Blender 4.5 to do the conversion, like it's usually in other parts of Blender. Then another change that was moved from being an add-on to be now part of Blender. It's not the Node Wrangler, sorry. It's the copy global transform. This it should have always been a built-in option, but back then it was faster to iterate on it as an add-on, so it's now part of Blender. So you will see a new tab by default in Blender that is called animation. So this will always be here. Before we only used to have these 3 ones, and now we only have item, tool, and animation. Let's see what else. Remove, another removal. Remove viewport keyframes. By the way, thanks Nika for the previous one and for the changes to the UI of the add-on, which was a bit too add-on-y. You know, some add-ons in Blender look really like an add-on, and they don't have to. That's a choice. All right, another removal is a feature that not many people actually worked on or used it. Actually, worked on maybe yes, but not used. The render viewport keyframes operator, based on community feedback and the module feedback, this wasn't really used, and it was getting on the way, so it has been removed from Blender 5. Then what was added though is a feature that I needed it so many years ago, and I added myself to my own add-on called it is an add-on. But anyway, the operator, it's called time jump. So it's awesome. Let me show you, because this is great. This is by Nika as well. So say you are here, you are in frame, let's go to frame 1. And then I want to jump, say 1 second ahead. What would you do? Well, you go to first, how many frames per second I said, okay, 24. So you do the math, you go to 25. Now there is an operator for that. These 2 arrows that are new here, let me make the UI bigger so you can actually see better. So these 2 arrows here, they take you to 1 frame further or back by default. But this, you can actually adjust yourself, because in this drop down, you can choose the jump unit. So say you don't want to go every 1 second, you want to go every 2 seconds. Cool, you just change the delta to 2, and then you have 2 frames. So you go back, and then you jump every 2 frames. So how does Blender know this? Well, AI, no, I'm kidding. No, not AI, it's just regular math. So if you go to, so you set your Blender to be 60 frames per second, and you press forward, you go every 60 frames per second. That's awesome. But say you are rendering at a, you have 24 frames per second because you are a sane person, then you want to jump every 12 frames. So you can do frames and then set it to 12, and you go every 12 frames. Or you could also just do half a second if you do 0.5 seconds. So yeah, there are many ways that you can go. If you animate every 2s, right? If you go every other 2, bam, 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 bam. Awesome. This, of course, you can, doesn't have a, well, it does have a shortcut. Wait, command right? No. Okay, this must be wrong. The tooltip says command right, but we don't use command. Maybe it's control right. Oh yeah, it's control right or left, but Blender shouldn't show command, because that is a, that's like the Windows key, like the super key on Linux. So it shouldn't show that, but yeah, control left and right. Ooh, nice. It has a shortcut even, so you don't even have to add a shortcut. Amazing. Cool, awesome. Thank you so much, Nika, and everyone else for, well, Nathan and all the other people in the team to review this, because it's not only about adding a feature, but it's also reviewing it, making sure that it works. Because yeah, something like that looks small like this, it actually sometimes can have edge cases, and you don't want to know. Just go and use it. Next, overlay. It's a new overlay option in the well, in the animation editors that shows you the scene strip range when using scene sync. This sounds complex. Let's just see it in action, because this is a live show. Might as well show things live, right? So let's say you start Blender and you want to go do some storyboarding. Awesome, right? I showed you this the last time. So now you can go start Blender right away. Let's make the UI not huge, because you can see, but I can't. All right, 1.2, that's okay. You should see it here. All right, so I have these 2 scenes. Awesome, I have scene sync. These are 2 different scenes. I can see Blender updating here the current scene. It's just fine. Cool. So how do I know this scene? What is the range of it, right? Because the scene can be smaller, right? It can be shorter. Well, you're actually seeing it, and I hate that little area here that actually gets on the way. Anyway, here. So you can actually see the range here. This is an overlay. It's called show scene strip range, because the original scene here, this scene that I see here, has a different frame range than the place where it's in the edit scene in this case. So that's why it's important to see it. That's why it has been added. It's a request. It was actually part of the add-on, the Grease Pencil, Story Pencil add-on, and it's super handy, super handy. So it's just a darker say. So if, for example, even if you have the same option here, but then you somehow slide it away with S for slide, you can see it's so cool. The both the reach and the range and the current frame indicator is moving around the playhead. So cool, so interactive. Nice, awesome. Of course, these are two different scenes, so you can make your own. Oh, I was doing an annotation, not a actual drawing from Grease Pencil. Let's see what else. The work range. Hey, that's a good name for it. No, range. But let's see what else. How's the chat doing? It's all good. All good. Okay, finally. Love you, Pablo. Love you back. Thank you. Okay, time to move to the next feature because we have plenty today. This one is so this is a very large change internally and philosophically internally for the way that Blender stores the selection in an armature. So historically, Blender stored the selection of your bone. So whatever, say you're animating, you have these 3 bones and you select this one, and then you make an instance of this armature. Well, the selection of this of this bone would be sync across all the armatures, and most of the time you don't want that, right? You just it's independent. If you're posing the character, you don't want that because they have different purposes, right? Okay, this was because historically Blender would store the selection of a bone in the edit section of an armature. So the edit, when you have multiple armatures, you can edit one and it will apply to all of them, but you can post them individually. So the selection was a bit weird that it was in the edit bone. Not anymore. Now that is in the post bone. So you can have multiple instances of the same armature with different selections, and that will just work. This breaks compatibility with the previous way of doing things. Of course, it's a large change, but this is awesome. So yay. Animation stuff. Sometimes you don't think about those, right? Those small details. Next, indicate parent inverse matrix state in the UI. What is this? Show the parent inverse matrix in the object properties transform panel. The matrix is show decompose in location. Ooh, interesting. What is this? Andre added 2 years ago. Patience. Nice. Actually, almost at the anniversary of 2 years ago. So yeah, when you have an inverse constraint, when you set the inverse constraint, now you will see some information about the current. Nice. So this is like feedback to see how the actual matrix of the location rotation scale is, as opposed to what you see. So know what you see, what you get, what you see, what it is. Okay, next. Thank you, Andre, for that one. Let's move to A. Well, let's stay in A for armature. Elongate tiny bones, says Cibren, instead of deleting them. So this change makes it so apparently Blender, when you had really tiny bones, like 0.00001, Blender would just get rid of them. And now Blender would not get rid of them, but just because also it wasn't communicated to the user. Not great. Now Blender would actually just keeping them at the minimum size so you can actually see them. It will elongate the tiny bones instead of deleting them. Neat. All right, next, BKA, Blender kernel. So this change, update more curve presets. Oh, this I already mentioned last week, but this updates some other changes, some other curves. So the curve presets for sharp, round, and root, they now have more points and they're more precise. So instead of 4, they have 6 for round and root and 5 for sharp. And the points have been assigned, so they are more precise. There are probably images in the pull requests. Yeah, nice. Okay, next. We have, oh wow, I'm yeah, there is sun, but no worry, it's gonna be, it's literally gone as I'm in frame. Yep, it's autumn in the Netherlands. It's already gone. Okay, next. Let's go. We have VLF, BLI, benchmark, build, cleanups, Blender squeaky clean. Let's move on. So many changes until we reach the section for C for color management. 2 changes. These 2 by Mbrecht, the one and only Van Lommel. This one is update new extended sRGB naming for. Okay, this is for interoperability. So Blender works better with other software. So in this case, Blender will recognize the prefix sRGB-E and EDR video it will recognize them as HDR. So that's awesome, because it means that when you bring in some files, Blender will tell, hey, I know this file, I know this convention, now I'm gonna use it as HDR. Awesome. Let's see. This next change, well, this is just a just Blender. No, it's a show off. Blender will now, so you can now build Blender against OpenColor.io 2.5.0, the new version. However, there's no new features used. It's just that some Linux distribution want to upgrade maybe before we do. When is Blender going to upgrade? Well, likely next year. So not for Blender 5, because remember that Blender, in order to stay, to be and stay and prevail an industry standard, Blender follows the VFX platform, which is like a guideline for the versions of libraries and other parts of other components in a pipeline that other studios agree to use, and Blender follows that, so it's easier to migrate. And you can find that list in vfxplatform.com. Sorry for blinding, this website doesn't have dark mode, so much for a VFX website. But the Blender follows the 2025, and that means OpenColor.io to be 2.4. The next year, 2026, the draft so far expects to use 2.5. So Blender 5.1, I guess, probably already is going to have this update. And it's an exciting year next year, because Blender will finally move from 3.11, Python 3.11, which was set in 2024. And then now it's going to be 3.13. Yay. Among other ones, I guess. I want to be excited about, what else? OpenSubdiv, Blender also uses, OpenBDB 13. And I guess for developers, and one other exciting one will be C++ C20 after 3 years of T17. So, nice. Next. What else? Well, C for the Compositor. So this is a purely in UI change. It's the inline socket. So the same concept that Blender has in many geometry nodes of having inline sockets. So these are the nodes before and these are after. So it looks like it has less things, but it's the same amount of things. Although, for example, for the for some of the sockets, they were removed, like this image, which is a color picker, which just sometimes just adds noise, because if you're using, I don't know, the color balance node, you want an image as an input, right? You don't want base color. So Blender, so there is a way in the code to hide that value. It doesn't remove it, it just hides it. And also to align the socket. So now the nodes are much more compact and they don't take as much space. So to me, it looks nicer. You don't have this curve, and actually, if you look at the overall space that they take, it's much less. So yay, nice. Okay, next. New node assets. This is big. All right. So last week, a couple of weeks ago, in last episode of Blender Today, the new modifier assets were added. The array and some others. The string to curve to tube modifier and some others. This concept of adding assets, remember, this wasn't possible before because you would end up with duplicate groups and it was a mess. But since Blender 5 fixes that, there are more possibilities to add more assets, and this is the case for the Compositor. Behold, compositing assets. Let's see, these are all implemented by Andy Goralczyk, an artist by the Blender Studio. Actually, today there are also other changes made by Blender Studio. And actually this release is probably the one that has the most changes by the Blender Studio artists. So if you're subscribed to the Blender Studio, know that you're supporting these additions. These assets are in 3 categories: camera, lens effects, creative, and utilities. The changes are: one is vignette. Oh my gosh, Blender has a vignette built in. Doesn't mean you have to add everything from scratch constantly. Film grain, sensor noise, chromatic aberration, the favorite of many people. In the creative category, there is the tune image, sepia, split toning, unsharp mask, and the utilities is retime. This kind of a big thing because you could do all these things. They are not inventing really anything. Like there's no new functionality, as in new nodes that were added for this, as far as I know. But you can now, use add them directly inside of Blender, which is awesome. So let's see. We need a slider for this thing. It's here. It's in the view here. Anyway, this. So say you want some chromatic aberration, you can just drag. Oh, sorry, I'm covering with my fat face. There you go. Drag and drop, and it would be nice if Blender would connect it immediately. There you go. And then you just change the factor. Bam! It's gone. It's there. Awesome. So let's see what else. Film grain. Boom. Nice. Film grain. So all the samples that you added to your render, they're gone now. Anyways, this is amazing. So what else we have? We have sensor noise, simulates the random pixel noise produced by a camera sensor. So when my camera runs out of their capabilities to the ISO, now this will work. Actually, it would be nice if the drag and drop would integrate. It would actually let you connect immediately. Anyways, there is a vignette, feather, factor, and of course, this is not a new node. This is, as you can tell by the background here, it's a node group. So you go in and you can actually see what it is. And it's not a node group, it's a node group inside of a node group. And then you go in and they have more nodes. All the nodes in the world, all the mess that you don't have to work out yourself anymore is now built in Blender. And of course, you can now go inside of the group, and remember that you can now navigate this context path up here. So you don't have to go like shift up, shift up, shift up. Now you can just simply click on the Compositor nodes and you go up. So cool. Then what else? We have sepia. We have, well, sepia, you know it. And I just crashed Blender. Yay. Oh my gosh. I got lucky. Who would have thought that a beta software will crash? Let's see if I can redo it. I just deleted this actually. Yeah, okay, so something else. Split toning, super awesome. Tune image. I made it crash again. Yeah, I was actually just using Control X to delete to delete the by preserving the selection. Interesting. You know, the Control X, because if I add a node group here and I press X, Blender would delete it and then lose the connection. But if you do Control X, it would keep the selection. So that's cool. But it's not cool when it crashes. Okay, cool. Let's see. Blender crashing live in the Blender channel. Yeah, but I'm using beta software. So, you know, if I was a good citizen, a good community member, I will go to the help menu and report a bug. But I'm streaming live, and I know someone in the chat will try to replicate it for me and try it again. So thank you so much. Actually, I'm not using beta software. I'm using alpha software. This is 5.1. That's why in the splash screen, I still see the other one. It says 4.1. I'm in the future here. But it's so new. It doesn't even have settings. Like, it doesn't even have the recent files. Okay, let's move on. Make asset shelf visible by default. Yep, this is now visible by default, as you can see. Then let's see what else. Perform LGG color balance in linear space. So the color balance is now in color balance correction is now performed in linear space. So it's something that other software already do, and Blender now follows. It's more expected by the user that is familiar with other software. Let's see. Rename lift to offset in the color correction node. This is a small UI change, but lift is now called offset, which is more accurate and in line with other software. Blender, are you becoming an industry standard or what? Well, at least it's trying. Just changing some words in the UI, breaking documentation, but it's Blender 5. Many things are breaking, so it's a good moment to do so. And that's all, actually. Many other changes, but those are under the hood. Nothing that would impress you. However, embrace yourself, because there is a new constraint in town. How often do we have a new constraint in town? Yeah, okay, enough. This is amazing. This is a contribution by Cartesian Caramel, the artist slash developer slash amazing person altogether, that has put together a new constraint that kind of blends it. It opens the possibility for so many things. Like, just look at this video. This is really outdated. This is even Blender 4. Like this is 4.5 alpha. This is very old, but you get an idea. So you have a bunch of vertices there, and this is a bunch of vertices that has the values, an attribute value that is just moving around. And then this camera has an object constraint that takes the attributes of those vertices and then applies it to transform, basically. So it moves the location to where that is. So it takes the location of these vertices and the rotation, and then applies, well, no, rotation points. You don't have rotation. Anyway, magic. It's just insane. There are a few other examples online. There was this one. I saw this tweet earlier today, which is by Edward Ureña. Look at this. Isn't this insane? It's basically rigging with geometry nodes. Basically, it's using this. This is an armature, and this is geometry nodes, and this as an this is a completely procedural animation, you could call it. Yes, I guess, using this insane new feature. So yeah, Cartesian Caramel, we are in the chat. Thank you so much for this. I'm gonna poke you for release notes help, because you don't only happen to be a developer, you're also an amazing artist. So make some cool art to impress. And also, you were pretty humble here. Come on, you could have make something like, look guys, magic. It always helps to show these things. Insane. Constraints, geometry nodes, all coming together. This is how the constraint looks like at the moment, and it's awesome. And it even has a new icon, which is an A made of dots. interesting choice. I like it. I'm missing though the different change of tones, but I guess it wouldn't look like an A anymore. So smart. I like it. Nice. Thank you so much. And it's all for free, by the way. This is a contribution by the community. So thank you, Cartesian. Let's see. What else? More changes in the core, and then let's jump into cycles. See for cycles. By the way, this is in Blender 5. This is not 5.1. This is Blender 5. You're gonna make my life a nightmare now that I have to work on the release notes in the coming 3 weeks. Let's see. Cycles. Specialization constants for Embry Sisal. Well, this is a performance improvement for Intel GPUs, up to 9% in some scenes. So super nice. Cycles faster on Intel. And also Vulkan One API graphics interoperability. That's also very welcome by Intel. Nice. Just like CUDA and HIP interoperability, this adds Vulkan to One API. Nice. And last but not least, also related to One API, so Intel basically, the minimal driver version has been upped for Linux. It's no longer 3.31, it's more 3.34.66.3. Let's see. You will see this message in the UI too. Okay, let's continue. We're done with cycles for now. There are other changes, but all fixes, inputs, and what else? Oh, even performance on uneven GPU renders. Oh, I missed the performance improvement. It doesn't have a number of how much faster it is, but apparently, because it's probably very hard to measure, I guess, in this case. So Blender 4.5 was faster actually, and then it got slow in Blender 5, and then got faster in Blender, and then it got faster. Not really faster. Took a bit longer, but it's an improvement on the previous Blender 5. If you actually compare, did you know that in opendata.blender.org you can see like the top GPUs, you can see all the renders in sorry, we need to make this website follow these settings. There you go. You can see which are the fastest GPUs that render cycles here. Although this is for Blender 4.5. If you compare Blender versions, that doesn't really help that much because some versions are faster than others. But you should say, hey, but Blender should render faster every time. Yes and no. Sometimes there are new features added. In this case, there's a lot of things around volume stuff for cycles that were added for Blender 5, which can impact performance overall slightly. So it's not good to compare in Blender versions, unless you're a developer and you like these kind of things. But on the other hand, it's super nice to, if you want to compare a few graphics cards, like I say, you want to compare a 5090 to a 4090, for example, and then you just render, search, and then you compare these two. So the 4090 up to 11,000, and the 5090 is 15,000 almost, which is not bad. Also, the 5090 has 32 gigs as opposed to 24. Anyway. Let's see, what else? D for the dependencies. This doesn't affect you much, but just know that there are a bunch of libraries that were updated to the minor updates to Blender 5. The big updates, as I mentioned, come next year. Right? Documentation, draw, Eevee. There's changes in Eevee, not so many. There's many in the GPU optimizations and stuff. And there have been improvements to the essential assets. So in this case, we have the separate combined cylindrical spherical assets that were in geometry nodes, now are in shading and compositing, plus a bunch of fixes. Then we also have adjustments and fixes for the new geometry nodes assets. You can see here the list: handle substeps in displaced geometry, move substeps down, some UI changes, and overall fixes to the existing assets. This, although, if you add these assets to your setups, you were using Blender 5 Alpha and now you're in Blender 5 Beta, make sure you add them back, you replace those, because these changes, they are not Unlike built-in nodes, they don't get updated automatically. Once you add them to your scene, they're local to your scene, they're packed to your scene. So you should replace them if you haven't touched them by hand already. Okay, bunch of fixes. Blender, it's in their need of some fixes all over the place. And fixes. Okay, where am I? Functions. This is a small change, but it's supposed to fix some slowdowns in functions, in nodes in general. And let's go to, in the GPU, there is one, well, let's go to GPU. This one, fixed by Miguel Pozo, makes adds native support for repeat zones, which means repeat zones are now much faster than the last time I mentioned here in the live stream. But if you download the Blender beta, then you have the fast version. But they used to be very slow. Now, not so much anymore. Actually, let's talk about repeat zones for a bit. Look, just have a look at this. This is a test by Quackaruni, the developer that has been contributing stuff before. Look at this. What does it look like? Well, it looks like blur in shading nodes. It is a node group. It's not a built-in node. This is a node group, but it's built in basically because internally it is something like this, where you have a setup that uses some noise, white noise texture, and then it makes some magic to apply it on the using the repeat zone. So it applies this on top, and then it constructs something that looks like blur. So neat. And there's also another test for the Gaussian blur internal. So this is awesome. I mean, I don't know how performant this is, but maybe this could be even added to Blender. Maybe not as it is, but maybe some tweaks. Maybe we get some feedback from other developers to see if this is the best way. But this could be a built-in way of having blur in shading nodes, as in built-in, as an asset, right? Like this in the same way that we have assets for Compositor and geometry nodes. This release, Blender 5, does not have any built-in shading asset, so this could be a good candidate. Which other assets do you think we should have built-in for shading in Blender? Like materials, yes, we should have materials, right? Like it doesn't make sense that every time you want glass you have to make a glass, right? But yeah, this is awesome. So I'm gonna share this, so if you can follow Quackaruni if you are on Twitter or another social media, because I actually started following because it posts only things about Blender, which is awesome, and it's improving things at nodes. He has add-ons that are actually on GitHub for free. So this is awesome. Thank you, Quackaruni, for bringing quality to this world. Let's see. What else? All right, it's time for geometry nodes. There are a bunch of, well, this release also is huge for geometry nodes. Let's start with the simpler things. There is a new node called join bundle. Bundles are, closures and bundles are new to Blender 5. And there is now a new node that allows you to basically combine bundles, but you bundle bundles, basically. You join the bundle. So super nice. It's a multi-input bundle socket. Bundles are iterated on the top level of each input bundle and added to the horizontal single bundle. Nice. Okay. Next. Warning. This is a UI change that improves the warning panel title. So now it shows, for example, how many errors you have. So 1 in this case. And then it shows if you have multiple even. So for each category, it's going to tell you, okay, you have 1 error and 1 info in this case. And I think we should change this error icon because it looks like a close icon, right? Like something you can click on it. And something more like an exclamation mark. We have a warning, which is a triangle, so maybe we could do something else for the error. But this X looks like a button I could click to close something. It's confusing, and also it's confusing because this warning is shown in the top left of some nodes. It shows here in the top left, so it's also like you can close the node. It's a bit weird. What else? Adjustments to essentials assets. The assets that I showed you last time, they got a few updates. So there are some improvements, some UI changes, some fallback info messages, and these changes you see here, thanks to Simon. And feedback from the community, of course. All right, so time to talk about volume nodes. They were an experimental option in Blender 5 for the longest time and previous versions as well, but now they're not. So they are fully added to Blender. Blender 5 supports volume nodes, and I'm not gonna walk you through all the nodes that were added because there's just so many. There's field to grid, there's OpenBDB operator, and with how slow GT loads, it's gonna take me forever. So better read the actual blog posts that developers wrote. In this one, you're gonna see not only some of these examples, but also the explanation by the developers of how these things can be used. And today there was one. There was also on Twitter. What was it? There was not from Quackarooner. No, it was Blender Geometry Nodes Volume. Geometry. There was one that was like a volume that it was. Well, this is also amazing. Using the repeat node, have you seen it? By Shasu Boyonov. It's Blender Eevee repeat node to make volumetric stylized trees using ray marching. Like, the performance of this thing is insane. Look at this, changing in real time. I don't know. Just, it's insane. But there was this one. This by Centarel. This is geometry nodes. How? When? Geometry nodes volumes. And there was another one also. Which one was it? It was also by this artist, by Centarel. I know this person. It's just insane. Oh, even the file is for free. No, it's $20. Okay, never mind that. Okay, but you can look at this beautiful art and get inspired. $20 for a blend file. Anyway, it's super nice. These things are available. You can do this now in Blender. Okay, next. Let's see what else. Well, anyway, these are the volume stuff, and in the blog post you can actually see some of the nodes. You can see a wall of nodes at some point in the, where was it, in the volumetric nodes in the code blog. By the way, there's a new blog post coming up. Also, I think it's gonna be either late this week or earlier next week. Also related to the workshop that happened here after the conference, related to geometry nodes. The volume grid nodes, yeah, this is the blog post that has some of these nodes. Here there was one that has all the OpenBDB operated. Like, these are just OpenBDB, SDF, grid ablation, grid fillet, or fillet or fillet. Fillet sounds like something I could eat, which is advect, grid, advect. What is advect? Advection, the transfer of heat or matter by the flow of a fluid, especially horizontally in the atmosphere of the sea. That's the example where it. Nice. Anyway, so many things. Look at this cute little volume socket. Awesome. Let's see what else. Optimizations, volumes, more things. Sorry if I skip so many changes, but they're all related to volumes, I believe, Quick scan. Geometry nodes show single value in viewer node directly. Look at this. It's the viewer node can now preview single values. You can just drag a socket there and you don't have to expose it somehow in the viewport. You can just directly change it over there. So it will look something like this. You just connect whatever you want and you will see the preview, the viewer. Viewer node makes so much more sense now. That is insane. Harry Blends is here. Harry Blends, you are in for a treat with Blender 5. Volumes and I don't know, so many things. But now you can use actually the viewer node to expose some changes, some strings, some other things. Let's see. Okay. Support lists and grids in more function nodes. Yeah, so volumes, grids, lists. They're added everywhere except the sample UV first. So every function node except sample UV surface now supports both lists and grid outputs. Neat. So there's still plenty of room for optimization, but this is added. All the outputs will be computed and every function node is evaluated completely separately. It would be better to a network similar to the fields and evaluate lazily when topology doesn't change anyway. Cool, thank you, Hans. Let's change to Grease Pencil. There is one change in these last couple weeks for Grease Pencil, which is add sample color operator to vertex color mode. This PR adds the sample color operator to Grease Pencil vertex paint mode. So I think this is something that is also available in other paint modes. Now it's also available in the vertex color mode of Grease Pencil. So thank you, Casey. Internationalization, seen a lot of improvements and changes thanks to Bastien, Damien, the community. And the two changes that I missed last week are from Image Paint. The options, the two changes actually, is something that was possible before and it was broken in Blender 2.8 at some point and now is back. So pixel artists, rejoice. Blender can now support single pixel drawing. It's a bug fix from a long time ago, from 2019. But it's something that the community has been requesting for a while. So now this is how Blender used to paint. So if you add 1 pixel, like, okay, let's do 1 pixel. Go to 1 pixel. Anyways, now you can do 1 pixel size. Before Blender would do like 2 pixels around, like something like that. Now you can do single pixel, yay. And not only that, so this is a fix. This is Blender was broken. Now you can do 1 pixel, yes. But not only that, because there is also pixel art brushes and catalogs. So there are two brushes, paint pixel art and erase pixel art, which you can now tell by these two new pixels. So paint pixel art. This is so nice. So let's see. Let's go to Blender. Let's switch to texture. No, yeah, texture paint. And here they are. Look at these boys. And I can just make this bigger. There you go. So we have paint pixel art and delete pixel art. Awesome. So cool. Let's see. What else we have over here? These two changes actually are in Blender 5. They were in a couple weeks ago, but I missed them somehow. Okay, you know what else? So this change, the fix was by Joran Visser, and the second one was by Julian Kaspar, another artist from the studio. Actually, this is probably the release with the biggest contributions by the studio artist that has ever been. So if you're in doubt that your studio subscription that also gives you tutorials and production insights on the projects that are being worked on here, you're also contributing to make Blender more better and less worse because Julian, Andy, Simon, and Demeter has been working on parts of Blender. Demeter worked on Rigify, actually. Okay, the other change that also Julian worked on is improving and updating together with the community, so a lot of organization work there, that's not easy either, on updating the MatCaps. Blender's MatCaps. So all of them had some kind of tweaks here and there. So this is the previous one and this is the new one. So you see it's a lot more contrast. So let's see if I compare this. This is the old one and this is the new one. A lot more contrast. You can see way more detail. Let's see if I go here. So this is the old and this is the new. So better contrast and more detail. And this is just one of the many. Actually, all of them has gotten a new new treatment. But not just that. But wait, there is more, because the new MatCaps support specular highlighting. So before it used to be baked in. So you just no options. You can just baked in. Not anymore. Now the let's say you have one of this, for example, this beautiful MatCap, you can just disable the specular highlighting here. This used to be grayed out. So now you can actually remove. Okay, some of them don't work at all when you actually, if you enable this one and you remove the specular highlighting, you have kind of a silhouette. Yeah, you do actually. If you just set the background to be whitish, like brighter, then you can just have a silhouette MatCap. No? Yeah, you can. Hey, awesome for sculpting. So say let's say, what other one is cooler? Oh, this is a car one. So without the specular highlighting, of course, does not really help much, but in some others you get the idea. So you get this specular highlighting. Oh, nice. So the diffuse and specular. And also which other one? There is one now, this is the cartoon one. This is the cartoon one. Hasn't changed much from the previous one. However, the light here in the background, this is a specular highlighting, which you can turn off also. Super nice. And well, that's it. This is setting for each of the MatCaps. This one in particular, the normal one doesn't have, because it doesn't make sense. So make sure that you check these ones, the with and without the specular highlighting, because they look different. Awesome, cool. Thanks to the community, because this is a contribution by the community. These new ones, resin, is that on Blender? Resin. Oh yeah, there is. Huh, nice. Ooh, yummy. Like, what is it? And there is also the other new ones. This is like a lighter. Yeah, it's not just updates. Actually, there is a bunch of new ones. Ooh, expensive. Neat. Wow, ceramic. Nice. All right, so next step. Oh, there is even some kind of like a thin film effect. We could even add HDR, right? They could be HDR at some point, because these are EXRs. Actually, if you leave the mouse over, you see the name of the EXR, which doesn't help at all, actually. But I don't know, you can't even open. Too bad. You know what I found out the other day? Well, that in the presets, because since a few versions ago, we have the operator to open the file location. You can right click on any preset, because these are basically files. Actually, if you have the Python tooltips, the presets such as, let's see, the presets for rendering, let's say, so the format, right? You click on the format, you get these things. If you leave the mouse over, you see the path where that file is. And the other day I just right click on it and it's like, hey, open file location. I completely forgot we have it. This is a built-in operator that is on every path. So you click on it and it opens Finder or whatever file browser in there, and you actually see the inside outs of Blender. You can see that it is in somewhere here. I'm building it on Kodo. And then you can actually go inside and see all the other presets that Blender has and edit your own presets and mess up your own Blender. Super nice. Anyways, and you can actually see that everything is here. So the studio lights, the MatCaps, for example, all the EXRs, they are here. You can open the EXRs and tweak them. If you want a MatCap and you don't like to go the easy way, which is just by going here and installing your own MatCap, you can edit the existing ones, which are all here. Or Also for the HDR, sorry, I'm really going somewhere else here, but in a world, these backgrounds, these HDR images, so studio, and you change the lighting to be rendering or preview, these are also HDRs that you can edit, and you can tweak them and you can access them here. Anyways, sidetrack enough. Next, let's talk about M4 Mesh. How long are we? Oh, it's only 1 hour. Only 1 hour. So let's say M4 Mesh, there is a improvement. There's many improvements, but one that is worth mentioning is that if you had issues in the past when joining objects to meshes that had free custom normals and they would be screwed up, not anymore. Now this is handled properly thanks to Hans Kuri. So thank you, Hans. Free custom normals now should work well. Let's see modifiers. There's new icons in the modifiers list. Yeah, this a small thing, but the modifiers here, there is only one modifier that doesn't have any icon, which is the old array, because why would you have an icon for something that is legacy, right? So in this case, generate, you see there are new icons. So you actually can't really tell some of this. So curve to tube is geometry nodes base, build is not, and geometry node generate curve to tube is. So how can you tell? Well, you can tell by this icon here. This is the geometry nodes icon, but that's it. Actually, everything else is it's not. You can also tell by the drop down menu. So the drop down menu for regular modifiers looks like this, common, but the other one actually has more options for showing the node group, show the manage panel, so you can actually see how it is built inside. And that's it. Okay, let's see. What else is new? Nodes, and for nodes, many changes all over the place. UI changes that are super welcome. This one in particular, I'm a big fan. I like consistency and when Blender works better with Blender, right? Within Blender. So in this case, the add menus have been unified. We kind of did this in the past, but I think for Blender 3 or Blender 4, but now is all over the board, done again properly. And it's awesome because the changes are, okay, it breaks muscle memory. Yes, it breaks muscle memory because what used to be in a place, now it's somewhere else, but it unifies all of them because shading nodes have a color node, but also geometry nodes have a color node, but also compositing has a color node. So there are many utilities, math, for example, or coordinates or inputs, constants, they're all shared across the many node editors that we have. So they are now all unified, basically. So map range, vectors, it just makes more sense. So yes, it breaks muscle memory, but you learn it once and it works all across Blender. So something we need to keep in mind when adding new nodes. Is this going somewhere else in other parts of Blender? Let's keep it consistent. So thank you, Habib, for working on this. Let's see what else. Show node editor context also without a node tree. Yep. So the context path that is in the top of the node editor, when you didn't have in all the editors, when you didn't have any data, it would not show up, and now it does. Now it gives you a bit more context, because then you wouldn't know if you were in the scene, in the color. And why is this scene and then it has a render? Okay, yeah, this is wrong. This is wrong. I mean, it's maybe correct because the scene, the render belongs to the... No, it's wrong. It's wrong. Like, it's part of the pipeline that is part of the render, but you see here the scene name, so it just doesn't make any sense. This should be the scene. Okay. Not gonna get stressed. Blender 5 has shipped, kind of. Okay, next. Oh, you know what is amazing about Blender 5 is that there is no FAC anymore. the F word, FAC. The no, this was added in since day one, basically. Blender, when Blender was still 32-bit, when there were so many limits in all areas. Basically, the factor slider, it was called FAC everywhere, all across the world, the board. And when watching tutorials or making tutorials, it was kind of awkward because you will have to say, hey, go use the FAC slider, but not FAC. Well, anyway, you don't have to do that anymore. It's now called factor. Yay. Yay for pixels and characters. So this is all over the place. This is just for labels, for sockets. This, I think this is a breaking change. I believe this was that's why it also took so long, because it couldn't be done before, or it was just not ready on time. So you shouldn't see any more fucks in Blender. No, factors. Yay. Okay, next. Also, bright to brightness. There is a node called bright. No, a node called brightness contrast. And the slider for brightness was called bright. Yep. Most Blender developers are non-English speakers. And I think this node was maybe added by Ton. Also not a native English speaker, so it can happen. So yeah, it's crazy to think that we all communicate in English, but most Blender developers are not native English speakers. Next. Even myself doing this entire show in a language that's not mine. Let's see more changes. There are more UI changes. There is a new icon for new group operators. So not a new icon, but an added icon to the UI for the group. So before it used to be the group menu inside of the node editor was called group now, and it had the order kind of flipped. It was group input, output, and then new group, which is fine because this is ordered alphabetically. However, it's not really nice because when you see this kind of UI, you usually have new group or new collection, similar to collections or new bond collection, and then you have the nodes, and then you have the node groups. So there's only two nodes for groups, group input and output, but now you also have the node groups and the assets. So it's good to have that here. Okay, next. Remove another UI change, small one by Kakaruni, the one and only Kakaruni. Small thing, but the object label in the object input was a bit redundant. You will see object and then object again. So now that has been removed. There's more room for the actual name of the of the content in there. So yay, nice. Otherwise it would look like this. Small things, but they all add up. Okay, next. Performance improvements. Keep processing some unlinked outputs in usage inferencing. By Jack made geometry nodes modifiers 15% faster in this case, I guess. But that's great to see. So we have too many nodes. Vertical scrolling was laggy. Oh, in the geometry nodes, when vertical scrolling. Interesting. This is, wow. So the UI was lagging. Wow. How do you even notice that? Crazy. So, well, okay, yes, it's a huge setup. But apparently when it wasn't connected, it was slower. Oh, so it's fast. Wow, that's crazy. That's awesome. I mean, awesome. No, it's awesome that it got fixed, but such a weird bug. Thank you, whoever found out this. So it's a bit laggy when everything is connected. When the last bit is not connected, then the UI would be sluggy. But if you removed everything, it would be just fine. That's kind of crazy. Cool, thank you. Who made this report? So Jacob, thank you so much. Must have been really hard to try to puzzle out what was happening. And thanks, Jack, for fixing it. Next, mix alpha and mix node mix mode. Wait, what? This patch mixes the alpha of the color in the mix mode of the mix node. Okay. This has no effect on save or even on cycles, but it affects the compositor, geometry nodes, and the texture nodes. So previously it was like this, and now it's like this. So what is it? Why does it look so different? Oh god, because it's comparing with the old, with Blender 4.5. But there's so many changes that it's hard to see what's happening. Even the icon got a bit different. Anyways, so previously the alpha of the first color was assumed, which meant mixing two images with transparency using a mask compositor result in part of the image having bad alpha. Ah, okay, yeah, I wasn't looking at the other side of the picture, sorry. Actually, this is the interesting part. So this is before and this is after. Oh wow. Okay, that's a that's a huge thing. Thank you. Because the first input was assumed. Oh, that's why. Awesome. Thank you, Omar. Huge fix. This should be say fix, not next. Oh, another one by W Cloud. Small change, but just look at the difference. So this is how the labels used to look like in the reroute labels, the reroute label. So when you have one of these reroute nodes, you can set the label and it will show up at this distance, which meant that if you had the usual distance between sockets, then it would kind of overlap, right? But now they just sit down there. So it's a small little change, actually even more pronounced in some other languages with characters that take a bit bigger space. Nice. Although now it takes longer, but I guess this is something else. Awesome. So awesome. Thank you, W Cloud. Such a small thing. Actually, if you look at the commit, it's just a one-liner. You just need to know where to change that line and have the curiosity to go look for it. So thank you, W Cloud, for looking into these kind of details. Okay, time to move to for OpenEXR. No, EXR, OpenXR. OpenEXR is the file format. OpenXR is a library framework for VR in Blender. So it's a library that Blender uses. This change, it's kind of big actually. This is contributed by Pico, the sponsors of the development fund. If you go to fund.blender.org and you look at the big names here, the patron members, Pico is there. So they sponsor Blender and also they sponsor development for Blender. So this case, Hogan implemented new VR navigation preferences and VR session settings, changes to XR raycast and visualization, new XR vignette that appears when moving and snap turning. And this whole PR has 0 images for something that is so visual. It's a pity, it's a big pity. Let's see if I can find the actual XR. It's not here. All right, this is a bit under. Okay, well, no, let's see. We have the release notes. I bet they are here. Where is OpenXR? Is it in core? No. Where is OpenXR even? I thought it was maybe like a VR, its own thing, I guess. It's nowhere to be seen. And it's very unfortunate because this is super nice. Actually, I've seen some mockups because we worked on it with Dalai at some point, and the XR vignette appears when moving. This is awesome. Like when you're moving around. So when you're in VR, in VR, sometimes you like just seeing everything is just too much because it can be a bit confusing. But there's an option where you can just set a vignette. So basically it fades out everything else and you only see what is in front of you, which is helps a lot with not getting dizzy sometimes. There's also changes to the navigation. Snap turning, by the way, you can point to a place and there will be an indicator where you're going to land. I think there's a picture here by there's artifacts even, okay, but these kind of things. Very common actually in some other in some VR games. In VR chat, I think you also have that. It's pretty common in VR. But now Blender has it. But there's no way to know because they didn't fill up the release notes, or I didn't find them, which might be the case. Thank you, Hogan. Thank you, Pico, for supporting Blender and making Blender better at the same time. Next. Was Meta there? No, Meta wasn't here, actually. Okay, let's see. Python API, Python doc, Python. Two changes actually that I highlight here in Python. One is the default node tree when creating new materials and worlds will have now Python. So some settings that will make nodes by default. So this is it basically. To keep backward compatibility after deprecating the material use nodes. Nice. And then add function for file iteration remapping by Sivren. Neat. So it adds a function to BPY data file path for each, which is a callback, and you can work out some paths with this. Nice. Oh, by the way, all these changes, I don't know if are they on Blender Community? Have people made it? And let's see here, Blender Beta Alpha, there you go. Someone made it. Awesome, thank you. I can edit your post and post the changes from this week. So you can actually read what is new in Blender, and all this, everything that I'm showing here, it's presented. It's highlighted actually with a little emoji. So you can just go there and let's move on. So what else? That's a 20 euro file. Let's go to preview commits. We were in Python. There is RNA, refactors, release changes the splash screen, then bump to beta, reverts, and we land into Rigify. Another contribution by a Blender Studio member, Demeter, made Rigify better because now supports full action slot support. So action slots, this great new feature in Blender, when was it added? A few 4.2, 4.5 are now 4.4. It was one of the big features in 4.4. Now supports by Rigify. So this commit tries to make the bare minimum changes to bare minimums to 100 lines of code and to add meaningful level of support for action slots in Rigify. You can now select an action slot in each action setup, and that will be assigned to the generated action constraints. Nice. This, for this to be meaningful, we have to support selecting the same action in multiple action setups, which was previously throw an error. Nice. And the last change is, for that to be possible, it was necessary to make the trigger selectors of corrective actions select one of the other setups directly. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Demeter. Committed by Sibren. Next, the Spreadsheet editor now supports showing volume grid data stats. Cool. This adds support for showing various stats of the volume grids in the spreadsheet. Extend the number of voxels in each direction, voxels, the total number of active voxels in the grid, and the leaf voxels, tiles, and size. Look at that. It's like Excel. Grid name, data, class, extend voxel, leaf voxels, and tiles. So nice. Crazy. Yeah, nice. Wow, we have a spreadsheet inside Blender. That's amazing. Tests, tools. Although it's called Spreadsheet Editor, but it's not an editor yet. I can't edit this thing yet. But it's in the plans. I know they want to add it at some point. Let's talk about UNI. User interface. Let's see. Remove the timeline. Yep, there's one less editor. However, there are discussions going on about, let's see, about having a timeline. So is there value in having a timeline editor? The timeline editor in Blender 2.7 had, well, there was a timeline, there was a dope sheet, but the timeline editor in 2.7, so let's see, let's open 2.7.9 basically. So the timeline editor in Blender 2.7, if you remember, was very bare bones. So if you wanted to edit anything, like if you had an animation, you wanted to add an animation here, and then you go to another frame. You wanted to change this animation, you will have to use the dope sheet, right? Yeah, the dope sheet. You add action. You can change the action editor. So this hasn't changed. I don't remember why, but I remember users complaining that they wanted to actually move the keyframes in the timeline editor. And looking back, I think they didn't want to move the keyframes in the timeline editor. I think they just wanted the playback buttons in the dope sheet. That's what we should have done, but we didn't do it. We instead added the keyframe editing in the timeline. So basically there was a timeline. Well, there used to be a timeline in Blender 4.5, which you may remember, Blender 4.5, this ancient piece of software that has basically a duplicated editor. You have an object and another editor, which is the timeline, which is the same thing. And the dope sheet and the timeline, the same thing. It just basically has the summary hidden. That's it. There's not much. So it was removed in Blender 5.0. Blender 5.0 does not have a timeline editor. You will notice that if you go to the animation editor or animation, there's no more timeline. It's gone. Why? Because people complained that that it was just the same thing and it was confusing. You don't know which one to use. However, there are discussions now today in the kitchen and in Blender chat that there is value in having a timeline editor. There are many options. There are many reasons why. Actually, there is maybe the visibility. Right? You are a new user. You want to edit something in the timeline, but you see dope sheet, and okay, it's called that way in Maya and other software. So people coming from other software, they're familiar, they see dope sheet and they say, okay, cool, nice. But it's not very intuitive. The other reason is that if you just want to deal with time, you just want to scrap time, you don't want to see keyframes, maybe you just want to move around time, because you have you're working with geometry nodes, you have a keyframe that no, you don't have keyframes actually. You just have animation, baking. You want to see the cache, the range of the cache. All these are things that Simon told me, by the way. I'm not. I know I get his point, and I get that it might be actually not a bad idea to have some kind of super minimal timeline, something that you can just use to scrub around. Not maybe markers. Yeah, but then you start adding things back. But no keyframes, no channels. Just no channels. You want to see channels, you want to see keyframes, you go to the dope sheet editor. What do you think? Let me know. It's something that just came up. So why not calling the dope sheet timeline? Well, because I mean, we call it dope sheet because it's a name that is common in other software, right? Like the industry standard calls it dope sheet. Why are we gonna go out of the way? We've been calling it dope sheet since the beginning of time, right? Blender 2.79 had a dope sheet editor, and other industry standards have it. So why changing things back? Anyway, there are also, it could be called timeline, and then you change the mode to dope sheet. But then, anyway, what do you think? Please let us know in the comments below, or to the side. If you're watching this on a TV, it's on the side actually. Everybody says leave a comment below, but on TV it's on the side. Let's see. Anyways, that's it. There's no more timeline for now. Maybe there will be. We don't know. Maybe even for Blender 5 the timeline might come back. Still open to discussion. Even though Blender 5 is in beta and it shouldn't be, and it's illegal and we should all go to prison. But maybe something we shouldn't change now, because if it's gonna come back for 5.1, it's so confusing to have Blender 4.5 with a timeline, 5 without, 5.1 with. No. Anyways, let's move on. Actually, there are more UI changes. There is a new icon for the sequencer strip modifier, which I'm gonna talk a bit in later. So I'm gonna mention that. Shouldn't have mentioned that. All right, this is the biggest change in Blender 5, bigger than anything else. No, it's not too big. The Blender 4.5 had Blender 2.8 actually. This is a change that we did in 2.8. The looking glass icon has always been pointing in the wrong direction. Have you ever noticed? If you go to google.com or any website, oh, google.com now has an AI mode. Jesus. Anyway, any website that has a looking glass, it's the other way. Actually, if you look for looking glass icon, most looking glass icons, except the one, they're all pointing in the other direction than Blender 4.5 was. So this is how it used to be, and this is how it is now, just been flipped. So that's it. That's all change. Small thing, but it was killing me inside. So I was waiting for Blender 5 for this. Next, show a more useful error when attempting to join faces. This is a small, tiny change by Campbell, that when you try to join faces, you can and you can't now. Instead of just failing, Blender will tell you why. So thank you, Campbell. Next, another change by Campbell. The RNA properties in the outliner, they can be nested and being infinite basically. So they can be nested up to a point where you just basically call the same RNA function and then it will just get nested to infinity. That has been fixed because it can run out of memory basically. Like kill your Blender just because like recursive settings. Let's continue. Missing icons for that's another very small change. There was a PR that let's see if in Blender 2.7 we had icons. Oh no, we didn't have an undo in Blender. Wow, we didn't have undo. Yeah, we had it in this menu in the mesh, but wasn't in the edit. That was 2.8. Wow, crazy. Anyways, the undo and redo icons are universal. Every app has them, and they look pretty much the same. And we didn't have those, so I added them. That's it. Small thing. Another change that I did very last minute was to make the popovers wider. And some popover, like what are the popovers? These popovers basically. So this is Blender 4.5. And I don't know if you noticed, but the word wireframe here was never complete. It was always wireframe. And why does it have two dots here? It shouldn't. Interesting. I never noticed. The tooltip says wireframe, colon, and the... Anyway, this popover is not wide enough. And there were many other popovers that were not wide enough. I think the texture one was also wasn't wide enough. Many words were getting cropped. They wouldn't fit. So now they do. In Blender 5, now there are these popovers which are a bit wider and at one resolution. Okay, now it fits. Yeah, okay, yeah, there's Blender's a bit special. Okay, there's some sizes where it just doesn't fit. Okay, I need to open it again. And then it works. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's the Blender's UI is so flexible that it's just interesting that you can change the UI and Blender only changes the font when it's open, not just the... Wow, crazy. Anyway, I think I just broke my Blender. There you go, 1.3. 1.3 is a good size. Okay, now works. Let's move on. Theme, a new theme set. No, theme updates. The curve handle type colors have been updated. They used to be all black, actually. Didn't make much sense. They like these were the free handles, automatic vector handles, and they yeah, they didn't have any colors, but now they do. So this is how it used to be, and this is now. So they actually have vector actually has the color of the vector instead of the green. Something you need to learn again, but makes sense. Automatic is red, like an error, which is kind of weird, but red is also like, don't touch me, I'm auto. Maybe it should have been green. Anyway, and free is, maybe free should have been green because it's free. And that's the change. But basically, this is how it used to be. Now the free ones are colored and all the other ones are colored accordingly. So it all matches, selected and unselected. So a small change, but a welcome one. So let's go here. Next change, cosmetic changes to the global transform sidebar panel. These are changes to the one that I mentioned before in the animation section. So thank you, Nika. Custom color now. Oh, nice. This is a small change that Leon did that makes so the, oh, you can see here the comparison, how it used to be and how it is now. So it used to be that muted nodes would just skip the color of the custom color of the node. Not anymore. Now it actually works. Awesome. It shows the color even when it's minimized. Oh, nice. And when it's minimized, it actually sets that color for the header. Oh, that's even better. So this is before and this is after. Oh, nice. Okay, so it's technically wrong because it's not using the type as, but it's not wrong because it makes sense in this case. It's just so much more useful to see the color. Oh, that's so cool. Awesome. Nice. And that was the case actually before. But now it works. Let's see. What else? We have cosmetic changes, preference. Oh, this is also kind of a big one. There is a new preference now in Blender that allows you to keep these menus open when you move the mouse away. Have you noticed how I'm all over the place and this menu is still open? It's kind of crazy. This is a thing that Blender has since forever, since the beginning of time. And it was particularly annoying in these long menus. So if you had something like this, you open the menu and then it would happen that if you move way too quickly, well, now it still happens that if you go over another menu, then it loses focus. That's a separate issue. But going to other places, the UI doesn't remove it anymore. I think that there was an issue for the color pickers where, yeah, it's to me it's a bit annoying still. But basically, because sometimes you will open this and you will get used to the menu disappearing. Although now this also disappears when I go to another menu. But if I go here, it's not. But if I go, interesting. Oh, that's okay. There's a glitch here somewhere. Need to work, so never mind. But anyway, this is a preference. So actually, if you like the previous behavior, you can go to interface and menus and then close menu on leave, which will bring you back to the old behavior where you just move the mouse and the thing is gone. So this is, I like this behavior because I'm used to it, right? So you use something and then, okay, no, never mind. Or you just change the color and then, okay, done. And then I don't have to click anymore. I just move the mouse away and it's confirmed, it's gone. And that's not the case anymore, actually. If you don't use this setting, you change the color to whatever, to green, and then I go here and you have to click on it, which is common in other software, but not in Blender. So it's an option. Let's move on. Let's see what else. Where is the chat, by the way? I lost the chat window. Are you somewhere here? I lost the chat window. Well, it must be some, here you are in the back. That's why I didn't see you. Sorry. Okay, never mind. We are here. Thank you. Yeah, you're here. You were just behind the window because I was looking at your chat and then I got sidetracked. Let's see. Should be enabled by default, says Roman. Yeah, maybe it should be enabled by default because it is a changing behavior. So maybe it should be on by default, just not to change how Blender works. But then everybody who's annoyed by that then can change it. And then you know what, Blender people, it was also the case with right click select and left click select. It was always an option, but Blender users, well, new users, they didn't know that it was an option. So they always thought that they had to learn right click select, which is superior, but they didn't know. Anyways, let's move on. What else changed? USVG icons for collection. This is a small thing, but it fixes an issue with light themes. So the light theme wouldn't show properly these color icons like the collections. And now they do. Now they have this nice outline. So thank you, Harley, for working on this. Tree view, yay, tree views. So tree views are like this list for shape keys, and it's used in many other places in Blender. And now there is a shortcut that you can just press dot to focus. So if you select something, you add a new item, or if you press the dot, it will focus on the selection. If you change options, if you change objects, it works as expected basically. But this wasn't the case before. Actually, was broken. So nice. Then 3D cursor. You may have noticed that 3D cursor looks slightly different now in Blender 5. It has these kind of tiny little things here. What are those? What are those? Those are indicators of the axis of the 3D cursor, because since Blender 2.8 back in 2019, the 3D cursor is now actually 3D. You can actually rotate it around. So it supports rotation, but that rotation wasn't really visible anywhere. You couldn't see the rotation in Blender 2.79, which I actually have it here. So I don't know if you remember, but yeah, when you click around, this was always flat. You couldn't rotate it. But in Blender 5, you can. And this helps a lot when you have things, for example, I have some surface that has this kind of shape, and then you use the right click option, which is a bit stupid because it doesn't align to the rotation when I use the shortcut. But if you use the tool, you can change that, the orientation to be to the geometry, and then you can place it and you can actually see the orientation that you see. So, okay, this is the Z-axis, the X and the Y, and you can actually change the one that makes sense. You say, okay, I see this is the Y, I'm going to change the Y-axis. Bam. Awesome. So the operator is a bit silly because when you use a shortcut, it doesn't. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to fix that? It may be a good first issue to do. So the issue that I have is that when I use the shortcut Shift right click, it sets the 3D cursor, but it doesn't use the setting from the tool that I just set. So I set it to geometry, but it should, because that shortcut you can use it while you're in other tools, right? So is anybody there who wants to use it? Want to fix it? Please, thank you. I could make a bug report, or it's not a bug, it's a feature. Let's see. And next, decrease edge icons color saturation. Yeah, this is a pity, because it's not a pity. It's an improvement basically. So this is how it used to look, and this is how it looks in the menu. There are new icons in the mesh menu that show you that allows you to, no, sorry, edge menu. So that shows you the edge bevel, edge grace, mark seam, which is great because actually you can see mark seam is red, so it marks them as red. Yay. This handy. Actually, I added this from feature request on right click select. However, the color that I'm using is the color of the theme, which of course you want it to be very saturated because it is in the viewport. You want it saturated, but the icon was a bit too saturated according to some feedback. So for now, this is desaturated. It's now more transparent here, but I don't like it. I wouldn't mind if this was like this by default, and then when you mouse over, it will be full. It should be full color, so you can actually see it and you just see fully. Or when the option is when it's highlighted, because you can also enable these buttons here. So when it is highlighted, it should be when the button where it is on is active, it should be full saturation. That's another thing we should fix at some point. But there's no time for Blender 5, unfortunately. What is there? Okay, next. Sort back groups below assets in the add menu search. Small quality of life improvement. When you search for array, Blender will place the assets, the built-in asset, the packed assets before the actual node, built-in node. Not anymore. Now it's the other way around. The packed assets are after, based on user feedback, because there will be so many packed assets that you want to tell them apart. So, okay, in the case of array, you will probably want to add the group, but not the built-in one. Well, actually, no, you would in this case. Anyways, that's it. Quality of life. And, oh, nice. This, no, wait, that's not nice yet. Oh, yeah, this is nice. So, in Blender 4.5, actually, so let's open Blender 4.5. You could, since Blender 4.5, you could hide these tabs. Did you know that? If you go to the visible tabs, you can just hide them all, right? Great, awesome. However, there is no way to know. Actually, here, there is no way to know. You need to know that this option, sorry, I'm chopping it. There was no way to know. Sorry. I think my body knows that I'm approaching the 2-hour limit of speaking out loud. And when I enable this, I don't know what I'm missing. It's really bad. So for Blender 5, we attempt to improve this by having an indicator. And this indicator is over here. So let me make the UI a bit smaller so you can actually see what I'm talking about. So now there is a small indicator here, which is grayed out because all the tabs are visible. However, if I hide some of these tabs, then I will see only the ones that I enabled, and this will be brighter. So it actually looks nice. So now actually we can hide some of them, and we are hiding some of. Do you see how annoying it is to not be able to dismiss this by just moving the mouse, and I have to click on it like a peasant? Come on. Yeah, I'm not gonna get used to that setting. We need to turn it off. We'll turn it on by default. Anyway, so this it now hides highlights. It looks like it's off center, but it's actually centered with the with this. It's just not centered to the icon, it's centered to the tabs, which is a bit weird, but anyway, super nice. We do hide some of these by default. We do hide them in the video editing space, but you will see this, but not anywhere else. So maybe we could hide some of the redundant ones, like the tools, right? When you have the tools in the sidebar, but you also have them here. So this is very redundant. So we actually could, if we wanted, to hide the tool one by default, because then that would make things a bit more tidy. You don't have duplicate UI unless you want it, because you can just enable it from here. I don't know. What do you think? Yay or nay? Emojis, please. Next. Movie clip. Frame properties UI template. Irex 124 added the start frame and frame offset options to the movie clip. Oh, nice. Small thing, but very much welcome, actually. Movie clip options. So start frame and frame offset are now in the movie clip. I know, also in the background camera, background images for the camera when you're using a movie clip editor. So cool. Nice, awesome. Thank you, Edex124. And last but not least, a super awesome addition for animators in the dope sheet is a theme option that you can now color the different interpolation types. So what used to look like this, right? This doesn't tell you anything, but actually some of this interpolations have different modes, like constant or dynamic or like Bezier, basically. And now they look like this. So you can actually now tell at a glance which modes you're in. Of course, you need to know the colors, but if you set this up, and also if you use it for a bit longer, you will know which ones you set. And also because they will make sense. This is actually not part of Blender 5. This actually is Blender 5.1. which is good because I was proposing at some point to also color the icons. I made a proposal at some point that we could use this color for these icons, right? Because they make sense now. These colors are tied to a theme setting, so we could make it. So you can actually, when you choose constant, you see, oh, this is orange, and then you will see the actual line being orange. Hey, nice, cool. All right, let's see. I think I might do this week at some point. Super easy to add colors to these things. That's why it's so tempting. That's why I added colors to every modifier. And then it was rejected because it was a bit much and it didn't have much meaning. But anyway, let's see. UVs. Oh, wow. Yes. UV. Oh my. We have so many changes in UV this week. And then the VSE, and then we're done. So let's do the last rush. This project has been in the works for the longest time. It's as a request, but also as a it's so big that the website is taking a long time. So this change has been in the works for the longest time. It was a request by the users for so long. It's a feature that is in the UV editor that has been there forever. It's called UV Sync, and it didn't work great. It was a bit confusing because it syncs the selection of the UVs with the viewport. Sounds great in practice, right? Until you realize that you want to select the UV, and of course the 3D viewport gets deselected, so now you don't see the UV selected anymore. So it was counterintuitive. Basically, you want to select a vertex, and then of course the viewport deselects. Anyway, it just didn't work, basically. Anyways, there is an implementation task, and there is a PR, and it's 6,500 lines of code, of Campbell's code, which, if you know him, he's been around since the early days of Blender, since he was open source. So it's a big one. It's been in the works for many months, 6 months, since April. You can see how long it took. I think Daniel Weiss has been involved in it. There was a proposal actually from Daniel Weiss 5 years ago in the midst of COVID, June 2020. Wow, mid-summer. So this is the issue, the errors, basically. So anyway, there are many things that got fixed, and some of them are done. This 3D view, the sync. So sync selection should be on per default. Actually, this option, but also sticky selection and some other things. So you should look at this. Basically, support sync selection in the UV editor with face corner detection. So it's possible to select individual UVs in the UV editor without the UVs attached to the same underlying edge also becoming selected, which will break the whole thing. There is limited support for maintaining the UV selection when selecting from the 3D viewport. Common operators such as picking or box, circle, lasso select support this. However, other selection operations such as select random or similar will clear this data. UV in sync selection is now enabled by default because now it works. In edit mode, the UV selection is stored in the face instead of being per section, per layer, UV layer. To avoid unnecessary overhead, this data is created on demand. Python API includes functions to synchronize, and Python scripts will either need to clear the synchronized state or not to maintain it. But yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. How do you test it? Well, you should need to open Blender and go to UV editing, because now it's enabled by default, and you can see here I don't lose the selection anymore. Let's go to Blender 4.5, new, and UV editing, enable selection. I select this, and here sometimes I would lose the selection if I'm using the wrong mix type, the share location, but not anymore. And you can actually mix these modes like share face, It's all UV selection. Also here, you can combine these modes as well. And it all works as you would expect it. It's on by default. You can even combine this one. The share selection, the sticky selection, share vertex, and disabled. More features, but not by Campbell. Ethan Trorik. Ethan has been non-stop working in the UV editor, in UV sections. This one is very interesting. I actually didn't know about this until today when I was going through these changes. It was 5 months ago, it was proposed. This implements part of the a feature for moving up, down, left, right. So basically manipulating the UV with the keyboard. So basically you have starting point and then you can just type in the keyboard or move around and you will move the selection around in a more precise way. And this implements, so basically an operator that moves the selected UV by, if you use a numpad 4682, this makes sense with Blender's way of using this. You can also use control numpad key, any key, for dynamic grid unit, for pixel units, for UV and UDIM units. They're gonna need some getting used to it, but once you use it, it's gonna be huge. So 11 people liked it, and it's apparently getting some good acceptance. And is this in Blender 5? That's a good question. So it was committed 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it's in Blender 5. Nice. What else? Trace select sticky and sync options with mesh and edit undo. So now when you undo steps, Blender will keep will track which options you had on for sticky and sync UVs. And what I mentioned before, that now the selection data is per UV map. It's not per UV map, but it's for the entire mesh, because before you would change UV layers and UV map layers, and then you would lose this. It would be each one a different selection, which is really weird. Okay, this stuff in alpha or beta? This all in beta. Actually, what I mentioned, this is beta. Yeah, it's October 8th, which is the day of the beta, I think. By the way, if you want to know which options are in beta or not, you can always click on the commit, the ones that I shared, and click on these 3 dots over here. This here, it will tell you which branches is in. So if you see it in main is every Blender today, so 5.1. Cool. If you see it in Blender 5, it means that it's in Blender 5. If you see something that is in main but not in 5, then it means that it's only in 5.1 or whatever we are currently in. Okay, time to wrap up, because we have the big change of one of the biggest changes in Blender. So the workflow of how you use the video sequence editor has changed forever, because the strip properties no longer live in, so let's open Blender 4.5. They no longer live in the sidebar. So this is a pretty common setup, right? I have here Blender 4.5 and I add a new text strip, whatever, right? I have it here. And then if you want to change the settings, right, you have the strip, and then you have to scroll all the time because there's so many options. You have to scroll, or of course have this much bigger over here. Or maybe use the sequencer and the preview, yes, but then you lose all the flexibility of having the rest of the UI, right? Like having the render resolution, you have to come back again and then enable it again. So it was very, very annoying to have this. And it also didn't make much sense because we also have modifiers, right? You have the modifiers of your setup here, right? And in a tab called modifiers, but we already have a place for modifiers, right? So all of that has moved into where it belongs. So let's open Blender 5, go to video editing, and let's open text. You will see that the text settings, if I didn't have the Blender UI huge, you will see it better. There you go, are now in here in the properties sidebar. So it makes so much sense. This now allows you to have more room for for scrolling. You can even actually just a book, make it full height. But would you prefer it to be that full height or not? And also the modifiers are in this section called modifiers, and they look like modifiers, right? Since the latest few changes and improvements thanks to Folk. So this is awesome. Modifiers where modifiers are, strips where strips should be, and all the tabs hidden because you don't need them. Isn't that great? And then you have all the things you only care about. Of course, if you add a layout and you add an object, then you're good, right? You have your settings. But if you somehow change this editor to be the 3D viewport and then add an object, you don't see the settings because the tab is hidden. So you have to go and enable it. But just use workspaces. Open layout. The workspaces are there for a reason. Okay. But actually, if you use one of the combined editors, like this one here, the one that combines both the active strip and the active scene for drawing, right? For making storyboards, now you have the best of both worlds. You select an object, go to the object, that's the active object, that's the active layers, and then at the bottom you have all the other tabs for the strips that you have selected. In this case, you have a strip, shot 1, and you have the modifiers. And this is kind of crazy because look at the path on top of the properties editor. It now makes sense. Well, no, it used to make sense too, but it was a bit redundant in my opinion sometimes, because yes, of course I'm in this scene. Why would you show me the current scene? But that changes in Blender 5 because you can have two different scenes. I go to this object. This object is here. I go to the scene settings. I'm in shot 001, which is this scene here. But if I go to the strip, this strip is called 001. Okay, it's a bit confusing because it's the name of the scene. But if I add let's say a color strip or a text strip, then I see that this text strip is actually in the edit scene. It's not. Okay, I'm now in the edit scene, but if I go to a previous scene, I'm in the shot scene. So now you should keep an eye on which it's the scene that you're in. That's why it's so important to have this over here. Blender is getting super flexible, so it's important to have these items over here. So I don't know if we should highlight them differently or not, because sometimes it gets duplicate or not, or we should have this. I don't know. There's many things we could improve, but time will tell. We're open for feedback always, of course. Blender is a community project. Next, remove transform effect. Oh no, an effect has been removed from Blender 5. Why? Well, because it wasn't needed anymore, because each strip now has transform options, transform properties, so the effect transform is no longer needed. So yeah. Next, sound pitch correction. Oh my gosh, we have a new option. Well, not a new option, but it was kind of something that was possible before, and then it was removed by tweaking the speed. Anyways, there is a new option now called sound pitch correction. It's a Google Summer of Code by Case, the Case files. Yeah, this PR adds sound pitch correction functionality so that the retimed sound strips can preserve their original pitch. So nice. So I guess we're gonna need audio. I'm not I don't even know if you get to listen that thing, but anyway, this is the option. You should go to see the PR, but basically you have an option to change the to preserve the pitch also over here. Pitch correction, it's a setting. What else? Execute modifiers in strip local space. Yep, the strips. Before the compositor, it made sense that the strips were in global space, right, in your scene, in your edit. But now, since the Compositor modifier was added to the sequencer, it makes sense for the strips to have their own local space. So now the modifiers will work in that way. So the full strip, rotated strips with this PR. What is the difference is that here you can see do you see the background image? See, in main, this would stay here in the same full strip, even though this is rotated. Not anymore. Now this effect, this checkerboard, is actually rotating with the strip, which is what you would expect. Actually, if this was an in, you would probably get a bug report. But when was this added? This is Blender 5. It must be Blender 5. Yes, it is Blender 5. It's a commit, and it was the 7th of August. Yeah, so it's definitely Blender 5. Awesome. Let's see. And last but not least, because Blender now the sequencer has its own sequence, its own scene, and there is also the actual scene. There is now a dedicated operator to render the render sequencer image, render sequencer animation. So you have these two options. You can render what is in the sequencer and it's what is in the scene. So maybe this should be called render scene image, scene animation, and sequencer image, sequencer animation, or not. No, this is how it used to be, and this, but maybe it should have a different icon because now it's a bit confusing. Okay, that's all for today. There's a few other changes: GLTF, Wayland. Oh yeah, actually I didn't mention, but there is a new option on Linux for Wayland and for X11 apparently, that you can open Blender without a window frame in the command line. Just do -- no window frame and you open Blender without a frame, if that's your thing. So, all right, how long has been? 2 hours, exactly 2 hours. I started at 5:10. How many questions are we talking? 17 comments. Please. All right, shall we do 10, please? Shall we do the top? Oh no, okay, there are some comments, so maybe it's not even actually 10 questions. So let's see. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and okay, there is a few. Okay, let's see how fast are they, maybe. So here, so let's have Hola Pablo, hope you're feeling better. Thank you. I've heard so much about the LSS in Cycle, so you know how this is progressing. I don't know, because it's a private development by a private repo by a private company. NVIDIA is implementing it, and it's a proprietary technology. I think it was just a tech demo. Fortunately, it's not there yet. However, Blender uses optics too, so maybe there is a way that they can implement it in a way that is more, could be cross-platform, and then whoever implements it, like AMD has one. There is, I think AMD one is also, it's not open source. Oh no, FSR is the other one. Intel Icon one. So no, it's not something I know because it's their development. Can we finally call this feature request done? Which one? Per clip compositing node system in the sequencer. Yes, actually, awesome. 10 upvotes only. All right, let's call it done. So let's mark it as done, and then the development URL. Well, I cannot add it, but that's it. Done. Yay! Thank you. Let's see. It's okay. Here. Hi Pablo, thank you for Blender today. It's very useful. Thank you. Hola Live. Thank you for supporting Blender in so many ways. I have a question. Oh, by the way, you also replied to this survey. There is a new survey coming. People, everyone. There is 3 big things coming in the rest of the year for Blender. We have so many things. We have the survey 2025. We have the Blender release of Blender 5. And we also have the end of the year campaign to get donations for the end of the year. One-time donations, recurring, and so on. So yeah, expect some communication galore. Let's see. It's so cold, it's horrible, but it's mate. Hi Pablo, thank you for BlenderToday. Have a question. The extensions repository is a great feature and it's open to other editors, but very few people use it. What do you mean? Which is a pity. What do you mean if few people use it? It's, how many add-ons are there? 500 add-ons. That's not few people. Or is it something else? Sorry. I remember the announcement of this functionality and I believe it's also open to sellers. Why does almost nobody use it? Oh, okay, no, sorry. This is Blender's extension platform. So what you mean is the extensions feature. So if you go to extensions and then repositories, this is, I think, the feature that you mean. This is, yes, this is a feature that not many people use actually. I used it myself. I think I have HTTPS, no, extensions, but I'm not gonna write, but I think I had my own, like I wrote the extensions dot Pablo Vazquez. No, I don't, it's broken actually. Now that I remember, because I didn't pay the SSL. So you're gonna get issues, don't even try it. I didn't pay the SSL because it was expensive and I'm not even using it. I actually tested it to test myself. So it was my website or /extension, something like that. But you can use it actually. You can have your own extensions and it's awesome because it works. you enable that. You can enable the official ones by Blender and then you will only see the ones that you have there. And that is an external repository, but you can also have internal repositories. If you have a studio or even just your own extension that you want to keep, that you downloaded from somewhere, like you could have here like a local extension in a local repository, right, with a custom director, and then here you say you add it to your shared, to your NAS, right, or your C folder. So you go C blah blah, and then you call it add-ons that I bought legally, and then you have a folder, and then you put all your extensions there, and Blender will save that as a repository. So when you change versions, Blender versions, you can keep those, and it's not going to be the issue that you have now with sometimes upgrading versions. People say they lose things. Anyway, it's a repo, it's a custom repository. So yeah, maybe we didn't do a good job on making this visible enough or making tutorials for people to use it, because it is super useful. It's amazing. The feature is amazing. You look very tired. Yes, I am tired. I've been talking for 2 hours to myself, to a camera. So I'm kidding, to you, but it's exhausting, especially when you are not used to talk that much and you have to do it for 2 hours. It's exhausting. Next. Mileporte, hi Pablo. Sometimes ago in a YouTube video leaked out some rumors about modeling, rumors about very big changes, about a new modeling paradigm in Blender. I would like to know if there is any truth. The source I'm referring is this video, which in turn quotes the Blender conference. Which is it? Is it me? Myself? Blender is changing forever. Those videos are... every YouTube video nowadays says that Blender is changing forever. I mean, thank you. But sometimes it's just, come on. Is everything a game changer? I mean, okay, you could say Blender 5 is a game changer, right? If your game is using After Effects, Fusion, some expensive apps for basic video editing effects, and those you can now do with Blender, then it's a game changer for you. Okay, I get it. But not every change is a game changer. It's a bit overdone. But I don't know what exactly you're mentioning. I think you're talking about SDF, and I think SDF was an add-on at some point, and then I don't know how it connects with the current SDF nodes that were added. But yeah, can you confirm these rumors? I would say ask the person, ask the YouTuber who made those videos. Can you confirm what you said a few years ago? Is this a really game changer? This is my game and I want it changed. Next, Ian Doro says, hello Pablo, congrats and thanks to all the Blender team. Another huge and great release coming. Thank you. I hope it is a great release. Please help testing it. and update your add-ons if you can, please. There is documentation. Go to the release notes, go to 5.0 beta, go to compatibility. There is so many mentions of compatibility, but if you go to Python API, breaking changes here, all these breaking changes, they have a way to basically don't do that, do this. So before you used to delete this, now you have to use this. So go open your add-ons, see where they break, and search and replace where possible, just to keep them ready for Blender 5. The API is not going to change until the release is on beta. It's one of those things that don't change. Okay, next. I want to bring attention to speed control endangered state. It's cute for deletion, but it's one of the most important tools for animation and motion graphics. It's far superior to retiming keys because it actually uses actual F curves. More details here. Preserve the speed control strip in Blender 5. The idea is to not remove the existing speed effect and possibly hold off offset BSE features in the upcoming Blender 5. The speed effect is the most important to say because losing the ability of using actual F curves and modifiers to manipulate key timings of a strip will be very unfortunate in my opinion. Developers are putting in the queue for the following breaking changes. I mean, if it hasn't been removed yet, it shouldn't be removed because Blender is beta. I can mention it in our live streams, in the release note. In the release note, no, in the module meetings. So something you can do, and anyone can do really, is to go to the modules, go to the module VFX in video in this case for the video sequence editor, and you can see who are involved in this, who are the artists, the module owners, and for example, you can drop by the chat. So the module sequencer has its own chat. You open the chat, log in with your Blender ID, and you can ask, or you can always ask. Of course, don't be, just go and say, hey, sorry to bother, but I heard the speed control is being removed and I'm worried about it. So I made this proposal. Let me know what you think. And that's it, just the link. Done. And I bet they're gonna give you an answer, or they're gonna say that they're gonna talk about it in the module meetings. There are module meetings. If you go to Dev Talk and in the meetings category, there is meetings for each one of the modules, and then the VFX and video. Where is the latest video sequencer meeting? Sequencer, there you go. Was on the 30th actually, so it should be, oh, there should be a new one coming actually. When was the last one? 30th of November. Yeah, there should be a new one. Or you can drop by. It's like, hey, when is the next meeting? Can I drop by just to, you can connect to the chat and talk to people. Next. But thanks for bringing it up. I understand your concerns, and there should be a good replacement. Pablo, love the textures. Hope hips more gets added. Physically accurate ones. Any good photo matching plugins for Blender? Photo matching. So I can match the 3D photographs that are a bit fish-eyed or warped. Oh, interesting. Not that I know. Maybe the community knows. Hey Pablo, hope you're doing well. 3 questions. I was testing Blender in a tablet on Windows 11 and was wondering if there are any plans on improving functionality for Windows tablets. Yeah, what is the issue? I mean, tablet in general are going to be improved because of the Android, iPad, tablet in general project. For instance, you have to double click because I think Blender will register one click as a move of the mouse and the next as an actual click. That, please report. That's a bug. That sounds like a bug. Sometimes you have to double click. Now that's a bug. Please report it as a bug. Doing my experimentation of Blender with tablets, I noticed that everyone says the Blender is too complex to learn. Without shortcuts, Blender becomes a toxic thing to learn. Jesus, the toxic is a bit much. I know what you mean. I see what you mean. I know of a few things that are annoying myself, just if you use a tablet and you want to change the proportional editing. Like if you're use the proportional edit tool, which you want to change the radius, you need to like use this freaking wheel, or you have to, I think, page up or down. So you have to use something else. You can't do it with a pen. Those things we want to work on, because again, Blender should work on tablets. This will be fixed as part of the iPad/Android/Wacom improvements. Are there any plans for layer texture painting in native Blender? Yes, there are plans, and it will be tackled eventually. It's one of the top priority issues, but yes, it will be tackled. Next. Yeah, it's one of the biggest things that are missing in Blender, like physics and texture, like layered materials. And baking and animation, better animation tools, and you name it. Hi Pablo, quick one. Are you still a right-click selector? Yes and no. Yes, I used Blender in the Blender when we did the presentation of the Blender conference, where we were all using different Blender versions. I don't know if you remember, if you've seen it. Yeah, I mentioned it. But the party event where we were all using different Blender versions, I'm here, and I was using Blender here. I'm down here, and I'm using Blender 2.4. And this 2.49 version of Blender uses right-click select, and it was awesome. I got used to it in like 5 minutes, and I remember why it was so much better. It's so much better. On Blender regular Blender, here you use the same key to click on the manipulator and to select the object. So sometimes you can't do the both. It gets on the way. You can't. However, if you use right-click select in your key map, change it to right-click select. Now you can suddenly select this and transform with the other, so it doesn't get on the way. So much better. And also you split the work basically in 2 fingers, so you are actually helping your hand to not get carpal tunnel. Anyway, I still love it. However, I work using Blender default settings most of the time, and I delete my settings every day pretty much, because I need to test this. And until we don't have proper profile support for the settings, I'm screwed, because I can't preserve them that often. But anyways, that's it. Yeah, I like right-click select. I'm an advocate for it, but I don't get to use it often. At home I do. Hi Pablo, says Paul. Thank you for doing these regular updates. Thank you. Wanted to ask, now that we actually got the compositor support in the sequencer, what are the chances that in the near future we may be getting new VSE modifiers as essential asset node groups? 100% chance of that. Similar to what we got with geometry nodes and compositor assets. Then modifier compositor support for the image editor as well. Would be amazing to see. Okay, those 2 things, 100%. The video sequence modifier actually is missing one crucial thing, which is being worked on, which I'm very excited, and I shouldn't show because it's actually up here. Well, I should show it. Anyway, it's amazing. It's a new node that a developer from the community is working on, which is called strip info. You see where this is going? The strip info node, allows you to get the start frame and the end frame, which means you can make generic fade in, fade out effects that use those inputs without having to add keyframes. Because right now the way you would do this in the video sequence editor, if you want to fade in some text, you have to actually keyframe this thing. Well, you can use the effect, but the effect never, like fade in, fade outs, never worked really that well. Because now you can actually make these effects, any effect, generic with nodes. That amazing. That allows you to do all kind of like wipe in, wipe out effects. I don't know, anything really. So super cool. I'm looking forward to this thing getting added. And what you just said of the what was it? Image editor. Yes, this is also something that it is coming, and you may also notice that the Compositor now has a group input and a group output. These two nodes were added so this compositing setup can be more independent. Doesn't have to rely on render layers, but can use any input. And actually, by default, if you connect this, you get the actual image. This is the equivalent. Like under the hood is equivalent. So you could basically have these operators in the image editor. Here you have an image, add an image, and then you could have the assets here and have like operations here. Like, absolutely, you can totally do that. So yeah, that is coming, 100%. Thanks. Pablo, can you please tell Blender team and GeoNode modifier out to add GeoNode modifier output attributes to be used as drivers? Yes, you also you can tell them, but yeah, thanks. I can bring it up. Geometry node output for values. Okay, next. No buts. It's not much today, but when you mentioned the video clip editor, reminds me of a non-standard HUI is. I know it's made like an add-on. I know. With all the Compositor updates and BSE, might be time for the Blender VFX revolution. No, live action Blender Open Movies are out of the question. I think there's so much work and money, and the Blender Studio is not doing great money-wise, so there is no way of doing it. Unless you sell the DVDs again in advance, but no. Unfortunately, can't afford it for a movie like that. So maybe an independent film, because there is people making amazing things with Blender. Like the other day, someone shared the Blender Narnia VFX. Have you seen it? This girl, this one. I remade Narnia in 1 month. She's like 20 something, and got his father to wear this as Aslan, and then yeah, she made all kinds of effects with the geometry nodes to remake as many scenes of Narnia Prince Caspian. It's amazing. Let me share her work here, because it's amazing that someone so young is already making things at this level with open source at home. That's amazing. So it's great that these things can happen. We should get her to the Blender conference to give a presentation. Yeah, and it would be great if I don't know if she's doing the motion tracking in Blender itself. I actually didn't get to that part. I was watching here, and then I had to work. So I don't know. Oh, there is rig here. Where is the tracking happening? Anyway, I'll let you find out. But yes, would be great. But it is it needs people. It needs someone to own the project, someone to say, to motivate, like someone, yeah, exactly, like a Simon for geometry nodes, or a or Daniel Lara for Grease Pencil. Anyway, Entity says, hello Pablo, hope you're doing better than ever. Thank you. Was wondering if there is any specific reasons that node groups don't support dynamic number of inputs, like menu in the switch nodes yet. Dynamic number of inputs. Well, they kind of do already. If you use a menu, you can show and hide settings. Have you tried the latest versions of Blender? Because they do. You can hide and show. I think I showed it in the last 2 weeks ago. Unless I'm mixing things up. Next, hello Pablo, thanks for all that. Looking forward to 5.1. I have an unusual question today. Who can I talk to pay for updates in Blender? To pay for updates? I can share them you. Fun.blender.org. Question answered. Or roughly how much would it cost to hire you to add a line? I'm not a developer. To add a line tool to the object mode in Blender, like the mesh line tool. There's plenty. I think on Blender Artists there is a forum for for development, or actually you can go to network.blender.org and look for an add-on developer, and you can find someone in your region, and then you can search and you can find them. So I think you are, well, I mean, it can be somewhere else, right? But I think you are in Japan. There is here someone, let's see if there is someone in Japan that does, yeah, there is someone, usually a car named Pereira, does all kinds of things in Okinawa. Amazing. And he has a video. But anyway, you can find people to work on these things. Also, in the communities here are discontinued. What happens to all the ideas who have submitted to right-click select over the votes? Well, we want to, I mentioned this a few times, we want to make a new website, ideas, Blender ideas, something like that. And we will try our best to migrate all the questions to the new platform. It might get tricky, but we would like to. Like when we make a new website, we want to bring up everything. That's it. The thing is, many of these requests are amazing, but many of them are also very outdated by now. And yeah, I don't know if what's better to work to make this read only and leave it there, and then make a new website with new proposals, with actually guidelines, because some of the proposals, well, we never had the guidelines for this proposal, for this website. So people were just making them however pleased them. And some of them are really good. Some of them have like the issue, the problem, bullet points, how to fix it, images, videos, but not everything is like that. So it needs some thinking. But yeah, we're going to do our best to preserve that when we do it. Hopefully 2026. Actually, this discontinued message was in January 2024. We've been busy. This website is run by Francesco and me. Francesco got a new job. I don't know if you heard recently. So yeah, things are busy. Hello, Pablo. How are you? Thank you. I'm good. This is not a question, but I only wanted to give some congrats to all the Blender developers team and the community developers for what they've been cooking for this new version. Thank you. Thank you, Maxime. Thank you for your support and for supporting Blender, actually, as a Silver Development Fund supporter and joining the survey. Thank you. That's a nice way to close this. I'm pretty happy that people are happy of Blender 5. Blender 5 is kind of big, kind of huge. It's all over the place, and the features page is gonna be a bit of a nightmare to work on. But if you have any artwork that you've done with Blender, please share it on social media, #B3D, #Geometry Nodes, #GreasePencil. I follow those and I try to feature them in the release notes page. I always give credit, so it would be a nice way to share your work and share what you do. So Blender 5 is big in a beautiful way. I'm reading your comments, by the way. Here's Harry Blend. So yes, that's all for today. We are going to meet again. Next time it will be the 28th of October, actually the day of Blender 4.2 and 4.5 LTS releases. Not bad. Blender 5 by then will be 2 weeks away of the end. So I'm pretty happy that you get to be here and I get to make these videos for you. We'll see again in 2 weeks time for another episode of this gathering. Yeah, we do. Of Blender Today live. Watch your ear holes. Oh, no. Watch your ear holes again. I pressed the wrong button. Getting old. Anyways, thanks everyone. See you next time. Same place. Same time for another episode of Blender Today Live.